In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The evening settled gently over the restless streets of New York City. The sky glowed with a warm orange hue, fading slowly into the cool shades of dusk. Storefront windows reflected the passing headlights of cars as if the entire city were wrapped in restless, shimmering light. Amid this urban energy stood a small, humble building on a quieter street corner, the Ali-Close Mosque, a place that carried a sense of peace far deeper than its modest structure suggested. Inside the mosque, soft golden lighting illuminated the prayer hall. The glow rested on the woven carpets, creating a warm and serene atmosphere. A small group of young men sat on one side, studying in low voices, while the Imam Hussein, stood near the mihrab. His calm expression and gentle posture filled the room with reassurance. His voice, soft yet firm, guided the students with wisdom and patience. But the tranquility was suddenly shattered. The wooden door swung open forcefully, slamming against the wall with a loud bang. Conversations halted instantly. Heads turned. The air tightened as everyone stared toward the entrance. A tall, muscular man stepped inside wearing a crisp American police uniform. His breaths were heavy, as though anger itself fueled his steps. His eyes carried a long history of resentment toward Muslims, one he never bothered to hide. His name was Officer Edward Toney, known in the area for his harshness and open hostility. Each step he took echoed across the quiet mosque floor, sounding more like a warning than footsteps. Some of the young men rose nervously, tension already filling the room. But Imam Hussein lifted his hand gently, signaling them to remain calm. Officer Edward's voice sliced through the silence like a blade. "You people! You disturb the whole neighborhood with your chanting. And why do you worship a God different from ours? Why do you honor a man named Muhammad? Who is he? And why do you spread this religion everywhere?" His tone dripped with accusations and fear disguised as anger. Silence followed, heavy, uncomfortable. A few hearts trembled with indignation, but Imam Hussein remained steady, untouched by the harsh words, as if he were a mountain that no storm could shake. He took a single step toward the officer and spoke with gentle firmness. "Why have you entered the house of God in this manner, Mr. Edward? Here, we do not respond to anger with more anger. We respond with wisdom and calm." Edward's face turned red, his voice rising again. "You read a book that you force others to follow. Isn't your religion something you impose on people?" Imam Hussein smiled softly, calm, understanding, unwavering. "Have you read that in our book yourself?" Edward hesitated. "No, but I've heard enough. Listening is not the same as knowing," the Imam replied. "Our faith teaches that no person is burdened beyond what they can handle, and that God does not wish harm upon anyone. There is no force, no compulsion." Those simple words seemed to strike Edward in a vulnerable place he had never acknowledged. His anger wavered, just for a moment. But he quickly pushed back and asked louder, "And what about fasting? Isn't that torture?" Imam Hussein responded calmly. "Fasting is not punishment. It is a training of the soul, a reminder to be grateful, and a practice that teaches compassion. There is no cruelty in it, only growth." The officer looked confused, almost unsettled. Something in his heart shifted ever so slightly. The Imam, seeing the change, asked quietly, "Tell me, Edward, why are you so angry?" The question struck him deeply. He looked away, lips trembling slightly before words finally slipped out. I don't know. I feel like my world is changing. Like I'm losing my place. Like I'm becoming a minority in my own country." Imam Hussein nodded gently. "Fear of change is not a crime. But the hatred that grows from that fear, now that is dangerous. We do not wish to threaten anyone. We only wish to live in peace." He paused, then added softly, "You do not hate Islam, Edward. You fear what you do not understand." The officer froze. For the first time, he could not find a single word to throw back. A young man from the crowd rose, anger simmering in his expression. "How can you enter our mosque and insult us like this? Have you no respect?" Again, Imam Hussein raised his hand. "Sit down, my son. We do not answer harshness with harshness. Let me continue speaking. The young man obeyed reluctantly. The Imam turned back to Edward and asked gently, "What are you afraid of? Speak freely. No one here will judge you." Edward's voice softened without his permission. "I'm afraid of losing my place in this country. Of seeing people I don't understand everywhere. I feel left behind." Imam Hussein nodded with empathy. "Many people feel that way. But we are not here to replace anyone. We are here to live alongside you in peace." Edward swallowed hard, unable to hide his confusion. He whispered, Why do you honor your prophet so much? Who is this Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him?" When he said the name respectfully for the first time, the entire room noticed. Imam Hussein smiled warmly and sat beside him. "He is the messenger of mercy, sent to teach humanity how to live with love, justice, and humility. He did not seek power, nor wealth. He came to purify hearts." Edward stared, surprised. "I never heard that. I was told something very different." "Because you heard lies," the Imam replied calmly. "Not truth." Peace settled over the room again, softer this time, deeper. Edward whispered, "Why do I feel less angry now?" Imam Hussein rested a hand on his shoulder. "Because truth softens the heart, Edward. Even when we don't expect it." A single tear escaped Edward's eye, quickly hidden by his hand. But everyone had already seen the beginning of change. The atmosphere inside the Ali-Claus Mosque shifted into a delicate stillness, not the fearful silence that comes from tension, but a softer pause, as though every soul present sensed that something important was beginning to unfold. Officer Edward stood in the center of the prayer hall, unable to understand the unfamiliar calm taking root inside him. It confused him. It unnerved him. But for the first time in many years, it did not anger him. Imam Hussein remained near him, patient, composed, and unwavering in kindness. Edward's voice broke the silence, quieter than before. "Why does my heart feel different here? I don't know any of you. I don't know your religion." The Imam responded gently. "Because this is a place where honesty is welcomed, where no one meets you with hatred, and where your soul can breathe without fear. Sometimes the heart recognizes peace before the mind understands it." Edward looked down as if struggling with emotions he had spent his life suppressing. Another moment passed before he asked, almost whispering, "Can I trust that what you're telling me is true? Because I've been told so many terrible things about your faith, that your people want conflict, that you cannot live peacefully with others." Imam Hussein sat down on the carpet and motioned for him to sit as well. Edward hesitated, a man in uniform, used to authority, unfamiliar with humility, yet he slowly lowered himself to the floor. "We do not answer hatred with hatred," the Imam began. "And if some people misuse religion for harm, that is their wrongdoing, not the teaching of any prophet." His voice softened as he continued, "Our prophet, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us mercy even toward those who harmed us. He taught us to protect the weak, to be fair even with an enemy, and to never seek destruction." The officer's eyebrows rose slightly. "I've never heard anything like that. Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because you heard from those who do not know us," the Imam replied. "Or those who fear us." The young men listening from behind watched Edward carefully. Some were still wary, but most sensed the transformation taking place. The Imam's approach was not one of debate but healing, and the room felt like a witness to something sacred. Edward took a deeper breath and asked, "So you're telling me this religion doesn't force anyone to join it?" The Imam smiled. "Not at all. Faith must enter the heart willingly. No one can force a heart to believe. We share what is true, but belief is a journey every soul must choose on its own." Edward nodded slowly, absorbing the words. Then, with uncertainty still clinging to his voice, he asked, "Why do so many people follow your prophet? What makes him so important?" The Imam placed his hand over his heart. "We love Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because he taught humanity how to live with compassion. He taught patience, forgiveness, and standing up for justice without cruelty. He showed the world that true strength is not in dominance, but in mercy. Edward listened closely, his eyes reflecting a mixture of confusion and awe. "It's strange," he murmured. "All my life, I thought he was the opposite of what you're describing." Imam Hussein leaned forward slightly. "Many people judge us without ever meeting us. Many fear Muslims without ever stepping into a mosque. And many speak about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, without learning who he truly was." Edward lowered his gaze. Shame slowly crept across his face. "I guess I was one of those people. There is no shame in learning," the Imam responded. "Ignorance becomes harmful only when we cling to it and refuse to grow." The words landed heavily in the officer's heart, not as an accusation, but as a reflection of what he had been carrying for years. The Imam asked gently, "Edward, did something happen in your past that made you fear people different from you?" Edward's breath shortened. His jaw tightened. Memories resurfaced, painful ones. "I lost people I cared about," he said quietly. "And I blamed strangers, anyone who wasn't like me. I thought it made me safer, but I think it just made me angry." Imam Hussein nodded with deep understanding. "Pain can build walls around the heart. But walls that protect us can also trap us. Healing begins when we let truth inside." Edward's voice trembled. "I feel like something inside me is breaking, like the anger I lived with for so long is falling apart. That is because lies cannot survive when touched by honesty," the Imam said. "Your soul is waking up to a truth you didn't know you needed." Silence filled the room again, a warm silence, full of compassion rather than fear. One of the young men spoke softly from behind, addressing the officer with surprising gentleness. "We were afraid when you walked in, but now, it feels like you're not here to harm anyone." Edward turned toward him, emotion heavy in his eyes. I'm not sure why I came in so violently. I think I just didn't know how else to express what was hurting inside me." The Imam placed a hand on his shoulder. "There is a saying taught by our Prophet, that kindness softens hearts, even the hardest of them. And your heart, Edward, is not hard. It is wounded. But wounds can heal." Edward closed his eyes and exhaled shakily. "For the first time in years, I don't feel completely lost." "You're not lost," the Imam assured him. "You're searching. And searching is the first step toward truth." Edward looked up, tears gathering again. "Then tell me, what should I do now?" The Imam smiled with gentle warmth. "You should continue asking, continue learning, and allow your heart to follow where truth leads." And for the first time that night, Edward nodded with genuine sincerity. No anger, no pride, only openness. The night deepened outside the Ali-Klus Mosque, but inside the prayer hall, the atmosphere felt almost timeless, as though the walls themselves were witnessing a transformation far more powerful than a simple conversation. Edward remained seated on the carpet, uniform stiff against the softness beneath him, but his heart felt strangely lighter. The tension that had once fueled his anger was dissolving, replaced by questions he never thought he would ask. The Imam studied him with calm empathy before speaking again. "Edward," he said gently, "every person carries wounds. Some wounds turn into fear. Some fears turn into anger. What matters is not where you began, but where you choose to go from here." Edward exhaled shakily. "I've lived so long with fear. I forgot what it feels like to think without it. Or breathe without it." "You are breathing now," the Imam said with a soft smile. "And you are thinking clearly, perhaps for the first time in a long while." Edward lowered his gaze, his fingers tightening around his knee. "But I don't understand why this place, why your words, make me feel like this." "That is the nature of truth," Imam Hussein replied. "It brings peace even before the mind fully grasps it." A silence settled between them, not empty, but reflective. The young men in the mosque watched quietly, their earlier apprehension replaced with curiosity and compassion for the officer who had stepped through their doors as an enemy, but now sat among them as a man searching for meaning. Edward broke the silence. "Imam, when I came in here, I thought you would hate me. I thought you would see the uniform, see my anger, and respond the same way. The Imam shook his head. We do not judge a person by their anger. Often anger is only a veil. Beneath it lies fear, confusion, or pain. What matters to us is the heart beneath the storm. Edward's voice trembled slightly. But I said terrible things about your faith. I insulted your people. I insulted your prophet. Why didn't you react? The Imam answered with the calmness of someone who lived his teachings. Anger meets anger and creates fire. But mercy meets anger and extinguishes it. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us that responding to harshness with gentleness softens even the hardest heart. Edward stared at him with disbelief. He really taught that? Yes, the Imam replied. He forgave those who persecuted him. He helped those who harmed him. He showed compassion even to those who wished him ill. That is why we love him, Edward. Edward absorbed the words slowly. I never knew that side of him existed. Because you never had the chance to learn, the Imam said gently. But you are learning now. Edward nodded slowly, almost painfully. And the things I heard about Muslims wanting violence. Wanting to take over? Wanting to destroy others. Lies, the Imam responded without hesitation. Real faith never teaches destruction. Only corrupted hearts create it. Our faith teaches service, mercy, and justice. It teaches us to protect life, not to harm it. Edward's shoulders slumped as though the weight of years had suddenly settled over him. I feel ashamed, he whispered. I lived with hatred for so long. The Imam leaned closer. Shame is not a punishment, Edward. It is the beginning of awakening. Another tear ran down the officer's cheek, unnoticed at first, then quickly wiped away with the edge of his sleeve. His voice trembled. I don't know what to believe anymore. Everything I thought I knew feels wrong. That is because you built your beliefs on fear, the Imam said. Fear is a poor teacher. But truth is patient. It will rebuild you if you allow it. Edward swallowed hard, his voice thin. Imam, when I look around this mosque, I don't see what I expected. I feel. He searched for the right word. Safe. Why do I feel safe here? Because safety is the natural response of the soul when it meets sincerity. The Imam said softly. You are not judged here. You are not hated here. You are simply a human being, searching. Edward closed his eyes as if letting the words sink deeper. For so long, I convinced myself that people like you were the threat. And now? The Imam asked gently. Edward opened his eyes slowly. Now, I think the threat was inside me. My anger. My fear. The Imam smiled kindly. Recognizing that is the first step toward healing. The heart cannot change until it sees itself clearly. Edward breathed in deeply, his voice almost shaking. And if I wanted to learn more about your faith, where would I start? The Imam's smile widened with warmth. You start exactly where you are sitting. With questions. With honesty. With a desire to understand. Faith is not a door you break into. It is a door you knock on with sincerity. Edward nodded again, the gesture small, but sincere. I want to understand. I really do. A young man from behind spoke softly, his tone respectful and calm. If you keep asking, you'll find the answers. That's how many of us learned. Edward looked at him with gratitude, surprised by the kindness. Imam Hussein continued, Edward, you are not required to believe anything today. Your heart must travel at its own pace. But what you feel tonight, this peace you describe, it is not accidental. When hearts come close to truth, they recognize it, even before the mind fully does. Edward whispered. Is that why? I don't feel angry anymore? Yes, the Imam replied. Because anger cannot survive in the presence of sincerity. The officer stared at the ground, tears falling freely now. I've been angry for so long. I forgot who I was beneath it. The Imam placed a gentle hand on his shoulder once more. Then tonight you have taken your first step back to yourself. Edward nodded, breathing deeply, almost as though he were breathing for the first time in years. And in that moment, something in his heart quietly shifted. Something opened. The quiet inside the Ali-Claus Mosque felt almost sacred as the night continued to settle outside. The city lights flickered through the windows, but inside, the glow was softer, calmer, as though the room itself embraced the transformation happening within Officer Edward's heart. He sat still, breathing deeply, processing emotions he had kept buried for years. Imam Hussein observed him with patient eyes, giving him the silence he needed. Finally, Edward spoke, his voice trembling with vulnerability. "Imam, I spent years believing lies. I let fear control my life. And now I'm sitting here, realizing I didn't even know what I was afraid of." The Imam nodded gently. "Fear thrives in darkness, Edward. When light enters the heart, fear loses its power." Edward's gaze drifted across the prayer hall, the soft carpets, the calligraphy on the walls, the warm glow of the lamps. "This place, it feels nothing like what I imagined. I don't feel judged. I don't feel hated. I feel..." He exhaled. "Welcomed. All people are welcomed here," the Imam said. "God created every soul with honor. And our faith teaches us to treat people with dignity, whether they believe as we do or not." Edward swallowed, emotion rising again. "But why? Why be kind to someone like me? I barged into your mosque yelling. I insulted your religion. I insulted your prophet. I don't understand why you would still speak to me with kindness." The Imam smiled softly. "Because that is the way of our prophet, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He showed compassion even to those who came to him with hostility. He believed that a gentle word could change a hardened heart." Edward blinked, overwhelmed. "He truly lived like that?" "Yes," the Imam replied. "He turned enemies into friends through kindness. He taught us to respond not with pride, but with humility. Not with hatred, but with mercy." A deep breath escaped Edward, almost like a sigh of surrender. "I've never met anyone who lived that way, not until tonight." "Then perhaps," the Imam said, "tonight is the beginning of a new perspective." Edward nodded slowly, wiping his eyes again. "I came here ready to argue. Ready to fight. But now, I feel like everything I believed about you was wrong." The Imam rested his hands on his knees. "It is never too late to replace false beliefs with truth. The hardest battle a person fights is not with others, but with the misconceptions inside their own mind." Edward's eyes grew distant, as though he were staring into memories long hidden. "My father used to warn me about people who were different. My friends talked badly about Muslims. The news made it worse. Every day, I heard something negative. After a while, I didn't question any of it. I just accepted it. That is how fear spreads," the Imam said. "Through repetition. Through misunderstanding. But knowledge breaks the cycle." The young men in the mosque listened quietly. One of them, a soft-spoken youth, stepped forward slightly. "Officer Edward, can I say something?" Edward looked at him with surprise. "Of course." The young man spoke with sincerity. "We grew up hearing things about people like you too. That the police hated us. That we weren't safe. We also had fears." Edward's eyes widened slightly. "You feared me?" "At first, yes," the young man admitted. "But fear disappears when you speak to someone and see the human inside them." Edward's voice weakened. I never thought of it like that." The Imam spoke again, gently guiding the conversation. "Edward, differences are not a threat. They are a test of compassion. Fear divides us, but truth brings us together." Edward rubbed his face with both hands. "And what is the truth about your religion? What does it really stand for?" The Imam answered with clarity. "It stands for mercy. For justice. For patience. For treating others with respect. It teaches us to protect the innocent, to care for neighbors, to honor parents, to give to the poor, and to forgive when forgiveness is possible." "Forgiveness," Edward repeated softly. "That's something I never learned." "You can learn it now," the Imam said. "It is never too late." Edward's voice cracked. Imam, I've done things I'm not proud of. I've said things, acted in ways that hurt people. Can someone like me truly change? The Imam leaned closer with compassion. Every person has the capacity to transform. As long as the heart is sincere, change is possible. Even the hardest hearts soften when touched by truth. Edward nodded, his eyes glistening. When I look inside myself right now, I feel something I haven't felt in years. And what is that? The Imam asked softly. Hope, Edward whispered. I feel hope. A quiet wave of warmth spread through the room, as though every listener felt the shift in his soul. The Imam placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Hope is the first sign of awakening. It means your heart is opening. And when the heart opens, truth finds its way in. Edward looked around the mosque again, this time with a softness that had not existed before. So this faith, it's not what I thought. It's not anger. It's not compulsion. It's not violence. The Imam shook his head. No. True faith brings peace to the one who holds it, and peace to those around them. Edward's breath caught. And if someone like me wanted to understand more, wanted to feel what I'm feeling now, what should I do? The Imam's face brightened with gentle encouragement. You continue seeking. You continue asking. You continue following the voice inside you that calls you toward truth. Edward felt something melt inside him, a barrier breaking, a weight lifting, a heart awakening. For the first time in his life, he wasn't running from the truth. He was moving toward it. Night wrapped itself fully around New York City, and the world outside carried on with its noise, distant sirens, the hum of traffic, the flicker of neon signs. But inside the Al-Ikhlas Mosque, time felt suspended. Every breath, every quiet movement, carried the weight of something profound. Officer Edward sat among people he once feared, his heart beating with emotions he never expected to feel. The Imam watched him quietly, recognizing the softness now present in his expression. Edward, he said gently, your heart is searching. And searching is the beginning of transformation. Edward blinked slowly, as though awakening from a long, unsettling dream. Imam, I feel like everything I believed is falling apart. And yet, somehow, I feel lighter. That is the nature of truth, the Imam replied. It dismantles what is false, but builds something far stronger in its place. Edward's voice trembled as he asked, why am I not angry anymore? I walked in here filled with rage, and now I feel calm. It doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense, the Imam said. Anger is often a shield. When the heart finally faces truth, it no longer needs the shield. Edward nodded slowly, absorbing every word. But then he hesitated, fear flickering across his eyes. Imam, I have a question. A serious one. Ask freely, the Imam said. Your questions are welcome here. Edward exhaled shakily. If someone wanted to change their life, wanted to follow a path of peace, wanted to understand your faith deeply, would they have to give up who they are? The Imam smiled with understanding. No, Edward. Faith does not erase a person, it shapes them. It refines their character. It brings out their best qualities. It does not destroy individuality, it enhances humanity. Edward lowered his head, voice cracking. I've been lost for so long. I thought anger was strength. I thought fear made me alert. But all it did was isolate me. Strength, the Imam said softly, is in gentleness. And clarity comes not from fear, but from sincerity. Edward nodded again, and tears slipped down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them away this time. Imam, all my life, I believed Muslims hated people like me. His voice broke. But now, I feel safer here than anywhere else. That is because truth calls to the heart, the Imam replied. And your heart is responding. A young man from the back stepped forward. His tone was soft and welcoming. Officer Edward, tonight you didn't just come into a mosque. You came into a family. Even if you didn't know it. Edward swallowed hard, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness. I I never imagined being accepted like this. Imam Hussein leaned forward slightly. Acceptance begins with honesty. And you have been honest tonight, with us, and with yourself. Edward took a deep breath, steadying his trembling voice. Imam, if a person wanted to step fully into this truth you speak of, if they wanted to follow the path that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught, what would they need to do? The young men grew silent. The air tightened with anticipation, not fear, but reverence. Even Edward felt something shift in the room, as though everyone held their breath together. The Imam spoke with warmth. They would need only to believe sincerely in their heart that God is one, and that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his final messenger. But belief must be honest. It cannot come from pressure. It must come from within, from a heart that seeks guidance. Edward's eyes glistened. And if someone feels drawn to that truth, if their heart feels different, if they feel something opening inside them, then that person, the Imam said gently, is standing at the door of guidance. And the door opens with sincerity. Edward's breathing grew heavier, as though he were standing on the edge of a decision he never expected to face. Imam, I feel like something is calling me. Something pulling me toward peace. Toward truth. Toward everything you have described. That is the call of the heart, the Imam replied. And when the heart calls, one must listen. Edward hesitated for a long moment. His hands trembled. His lips parted as though he were trying to speak but wasn't sure how. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, If I wanted to, if I wished to embrace this faith, would God accept someone like me? Someone who hated for so long? Someone who hurt people? The Imam's expression softened with deep compassion. Edward, God welcomes those who come to him sincerely. No matter their past. No matter their mistakes. His mercy is greater than any darkness a person carries. If you come with truth in your heart, he will accept you. Edward's face crumpled as tears flowed freely now. I want to start over, he whispered. I want to rebuild my life. I want peace. The Imam nodded gently. Edward, do you wish to embrace the path taught by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? Do you wish to enter this faith with sincerity? Everyone watched, silent and still. Edward lifted his head, his voice trembling with emotion he could no longer contain. Yes, I do. With all my heart. A soft wave of emotion moved through the room like a warm breeze. Some of the young men placed their hands over their chests, touched by his sincerity. The Imam encouraged him warmly. Then repeat after me, with sincerity in your heart. Edward nodded, wiping his tears with shaking hands. With a trembling voice, he followed the Imam's words in English, declaring his belief in the oneness of God, and accepting Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as the final messenger. As soon as he finished, a profound stillness filled the mosque, followed by the voices of the young men rising in joy. God is great! Edward broke into uncontrollable tears, not of sorrow, but of relief. For the first time in decades, the chains around his heart had shattered. The Imam embraced him softly. Welcome, Edward, you are now our brother. The young men gathered around him, offering pats on the back, smiles, and words of encouragement. Outside, the city lights continued to flicker. But inside Edward's heart, a new light had been born. A light brighter than anything he had ever known. His new life had begun.